Many professionals are masters of the external world, managing teams and hitting complex targets with ease. Yet, facing a personal choice, they find themselves frozen. They require a committee for basic existence. They consult parents on job offers, vet spouses through their uncles, and wait for a nod from an elder before moving to a new neighborhood. On the surface, this looks like communal piety. In reality, it is a total lack of individual agency. Psychologists often identify this as learned helplessness. It is a predictable outcome for anyone who grew up under an operating system that prioritized absolute obedience over exploration. When parents demand total compliance, they are mislabeling power as respect. A child's attempt to develop an independent voice, asking why or how, is treated as a violation of the hierarchy rather than a step toward maturity. This creates a specialized kind of performer. They kneel, they prostrate, and offer the required greetings, all while their internal spirit remains stifled and furious. Demanding respect as an unearned tax of birth produces adults who function as hostages. Their minds stagnate because they were never given the chance to navigate their own lives. To understand this control, we have to look at the people who enforced it. Most parents adopted these rigid tactics out of a deep, unexamined fear inherited from their own childhoods. These parents grew up in a landscape of civil war, sudden economic collapse, and extreme scarcity. In that world, children were often treated as property, and safety was the only priority. They practiced survival parenting. In a dangerous environment, absolute psychological control functioned as a protective shield. Obedience wasn't about etiquette, it was a mechanism to keep the child alive. This domestic rigidity mirrored the institutional world outside. Military regimes and top-down social structures normalized the idea that those in power are beyond reproach. Survival tactics eventually hardened into tradition. Parents began to view this control as a form of cultural preservation, passing it down as a permanent debt the child must repay. When love is fused with the fear of a harsh world, unexamined power masquerades as care. This turns trauma into a family heirloom, transmitted from one generation to the next. This generational control is maintained through a specific architecture. The first pillar is weaponized language. Proverbs are often deployed as verbal machetes. Instead of sharing wisdom, they are used to immediately cut down a child's perspective, leaving the parent standing unchallenged in the conversation. The second pillar is the financial leash. Basic provisions, food, shelter, and school fees, are treated as a loan. In exchange for support, the parent expects the right to dictate the child's career, friendships, and even their inner thoughts. The third pillar is emotional gatekeeping. If an adult child attempts to set a healthy boundary, it is reframed as ingratitude or a betrayal of the family unit. This environment installs an internalized elder, a permanent voice of judgment that lives inside the adult's mind long after they have moved out. By managing every detail, parents remove the opportunity for their children to fail. This prevents the development of the psychological muscles required to navigate the complexities of adult life. A household built on fear-based control spiritually amputates the child. They enter the world waiting for permission to exist, unable to trust their own steering wheel. The current model of top-down authority often claims to be ancient tradition. However, West African history suggests a more balanced origin, the concept of omoluabi. In many pre-colonial structures, respect was a two-way street. Titled elders held heavy obligations to the youth, and systems like the Iwu age grades allowed young people to hold abusive authorities accountable. Reclaiming this reciprocity requires a new definition of respect. True respect involves honoring a person's boundaries and recognizing their right to an independent inner life without threatening them with withdrawal or punishment. Moving toward independence is a visceral experience. You must choose your own voice, even when your body reacts with a trained sense of guilt, a survival reflex installed before you had words. Self-responsibility is a daily exercise. Every time you make a choice for your own flourishing, you add a fiber to a muscle that has been atrophied for years. Setting firm boundaries is often framed as a destruction of the family. In truth, it protects your individual health while allowing the family to evolve into a relationship between independent adults. Forgiveness is the act of releasing the weight of the past. It works alongside boundaries, which serve to prevent new wounds from being inflicted. The ultimate goal is to break the cycle. By reclaiming your agency, you ensure that the next generation receives a compass for their own journey, rather than a cage for their protection. Breaking the ancestral ledger is an act of fierce love. It transforms a legacy of survivalist fear into a future of genuine,